GMNA uses artificial intelligence for generated speech, visuals, and production. AI-generated content may contain errors. Please verify important information before making decisions or taking action.
Good morning, Montreal. I'm Lauren Dupuis. A daring car crash into a downtown jewelry store left 4 teens in custody, and a new Heat Island study shows stark temperature gaps across Boulevard de l'Acadie. Stay tuned for traffic updates. Over to you, Ryan.
Evelyn Badu delivered a dominant performance, leading the Montreal Roses to a convincing victory over Vancouver yesterday.
The match concluded with the Roses scoring 3 goals, while Vancouver managed only 1, securing the win.
The victory places Montreal Roses atop the Northern Super League standings heading into the next weekend.
All right, let's get into it and start the morning headlines with our top stories today. Good morning, Montreal. Quebec prosecutors are confronting a mounting dilemma as they approach the 10-year anniversary of the Supreme Court's Jordan decision. The 2016 ruling established strict limits on how long a criminal case may remain unresolved before trial, a framework that now forces judges and Crown attorneys to meet deadlines that many deem unattainable. Officials say the required turnaround has squeezed resources, prompting prosecutors to prioritize certain charges, seek early pleas, or in some instances, dismiss cases altogether. Critics argue the pressure threatens the fairness of the process, while the Justice Department maintains the timeline is essential to curb backlogs. As the province grapples with these constraints, the balance between speedy justice and thorough prosecution remains a contentious issue within Quebec's legal system. Provincial justice officials say they are reviewing legislative options to adjust the Jordan framework without compromising defendants' rights.
Aurélie Rivard, the decorated Paralympic swimmer, stepped onto the pool deck this morning at the Canadian swimming trials in Montreal, eyeing the 400-meter freestyle. The former champion, who recently completed a law degree, said the return marks a personal milestone as she tackles new challenges in and out of the water. Rivard's presence adds depth to a field that includes rising provincial talent, and her experience from multiple Paralympic Games brings a seasoned edge. Organizers noted that the trials serve as the gateway to the upcoming international competition, and Rivard is focused on delivering a strong time in the 400-meter event. Fans gathered along the lane lines, cheering the athlete whose comeback blends academic achievement with athletic ambition. Coaches note her legal studies sharpened her focus, and she aims for a Paralympic spot this cycle.
Volunteers are handing out freshness kits across Montreal today, targeting residents in neighborhoods hit hardest by the lingering heat wave. The kits, packed with water, cooling towels, and basic hygiene supplies, aim to ease the strain on people most vulnerable to soaring temperatures in the city's heat islands. Community groups coordinated the effort after meteorologists warned that the current spell of extreme heat could persist through the weekend. Organizers say the distribution began yesterday in areas such as the Plateau, Rose-Mon, La Petite Patrie, and Verdun, and volunteers continue to circulate through streets and local shelters this morning. Officials from the Public Health Office reminded citizens to stay hydrated, seek shade, and watch for signs of heat-related illness, while the city works to expand cooling centers. The outreach remains active as temperatures stay above normal.
Yesterday, leading Canadian swimmer Summer McIntosh pulled out of the national swimming trials in Montreal after being sidelined by a virus. The 21-year-old, a cornerstone of Canada's swimming squad, had been slated to compete in the qualifying meets that determine the roster for upcoming international events. Officials confirmed her withdrawal on Tuesday, citing medical advice that the illness would compromise performance and pose a health risk to fellow competitors. The decision leaves a gap in the sprint and distance lineups, prompting coaches to adjust their selection strategies ahead of the next World Championship cycle. McIntosh's team has not disclosed the specific nature of the virus, but indicated she will focus on recovery and hopes to return for future competitions. She had previously set national records in the 200-meter freestyle and 400-meter individual medley, achievements that have raised expectations for her Olympic prospects.
Yesterday, world champion figure skater Maxime Deschamps told reporters he's stepping away from competitive skating. The decision follows his triumph in the couples event with partner Diana Stellato-Dudek, when the pair captured the world title at the 2024 championships held in Montreal. That competition gathered the sport's leading pairs, and Deschamps and Stellato Dudek delivered the performance that earned them gold. Deschamps, a veteran of the discipline, said the achievement feels like the right moment to close his competitive chapter. He thanked coaches, fans, and the skating community for their support throughout his career, praised his dedication, and expressed optimism for the future of their discipline. Officials from Skate Canada confirmed the retirement is effective immediately, and the Federation will begin planning a tribute to honor Deschamps' contributions to Canadian skating. Up next, we'll explain why the REM service between Panama and Brossard stopped, and how it affects commuters. We will be right back.
Watch the local sunset tonight at 6 p.m. for all your local Montreal news.
If you run a venue, a comedy night, a concert, a fundraiser, you already know the hardest part isn't the show. It's selling the seats. Theaterfiller changes that. In minutes, you're set up with your own ticketing page, QR code delivery, and a door scanner. No technical headaches. No middleman taking a cut of your night. Your event, your tickets, your revenue. Go to theaterfiller.com and fill every seat.
Welcome back, everyone. I hope you're feeling refreshed. Let's dive into today's headlines, then Ryan Mercer will bring you the local stories you need.
Service on the REM has been suspended between Panama and Brossard stations after an electrical power issue emerged around 12:20 p.m. on Tuesday. The interruption continues as crews work to restore supply, leaving commuters heading toward corridor without trains. Riders are being advised to seek alternative transportation, and agency has not yet announced a timeline for resumption. The REM, which links downtown to suburbs across the region, carries thousands of passengers, so outage is expected to affect travel plans for many. Officials said problem appears isolated to segment between the two stations, and no safety incidents have been reported. REM Authority confirmed it is coordinating with local utility to locate fault and expects crews to stay on site through evening. Passengers waiting at Panama and Brossard reported long queues for shuttle buses arranged to bridge the gap. Updates will be provided as situation develops.
Yesterday, Christiane Germain stepped down as chair of the board that governs Santé Quebec, the provincial agency overseeing the province's health care system. Germain issued a brief statement thanking colleagues for their dedication and emphasizing her confidence in the agency's mission. Her resignation comes amid ongoing scrutiny of the agency's handling of hospital capacity and staffing shortages, issues that have affected waiting times for many residents. Officials said the board will begin a search for a new chair immediately, while the agency's executive team remains in place to maintain continuity of services. Healthcare providers have been urged to stay focused on patient care during the transition. The provincial health minister confirmed that the resignation will not disrupt current reform initiatives aimed at improving access to care. As the board reorganizes, stakeholders are watching closely to see how leadership changes might influence upcoming policy decisions.
The Provincial Health Ministry announced today that it is drafting tighter rules for over-the-counter antihistamine sales after a fatal overdose last year. The case involved an 18-year-old who died in 2023 after consuming large quantities of Benadryl. A coroner's report released in 2025 urged the government to restrict how much of the medication can be bought without a prescription. Officials say the new measures could limit pack sizes and require pharmacists to verify age before sale. Health advocates argue the changes aim to keep families safe, while pharmacists warn of added paperwork. The proposal is now before the cabinet, with a decision expected later this year. Residents who keep the drug at home for allergies may soon see new purchase guidelines on store shelves. Many households keep a few tablets on nightstands for sudden allergic reactions, making the upcoming rules a daily consideration for shoppers.
The province's online portal for final ministry exam results went offline on July 7th, leaving thousands of high school students and their families unable to view scores. The crash, traced to a technical failure, halted access to the site that annually publishes the results. The Ministry of Education confirmed the outage and said engineers are working to restore the service. In the meantime, students who depend on the portal for university applications and scholarship decisions remain in limbo, unable to confirm their performance. Parents reported frustration as they await an update, and schools are advising learners to hold off on any further planning until the results are released. Officials did not give a timeline for when the portal will be fully operational again, but pledged to keep the public informed as the issue is resolved.
On Tuesday, a Quebec Conservative MP announced his resignation from the party caucus, clearing the way for a pending appointment to the Senate. Prime Minister Mark Carney is set to name the former MP to the upper chamber in his first round of Senate selections, which also includes a senior advisor. The move is framed as an effort to reintroduce partisan voices after more than 10 years of largely nonpartisan composition. Sources say the appointment will restore a conservative presence in Senate debates and committee work, giving the party a direct channel for policy influence. Carney's strategy signals a shift toward traditional party representation, a change that could affect how legislation is reviewed and amended before reaching the House of Commons. The appointment is expected to take effect shortly after the formal nomination process is completed.
Now, let's turn to the weather and see what the day holds for Montreal.
A westerly jet stream and slipping pressure set the stage for a hot, clear day. On this date, the all-time high reached 31 degrees Celsius in 2020, a spike that rode the tail end of a record-breaking heat wave across southern Quebec. The all-time low sits at 12.5 degrees Celsius, recorded in 2019 during an unusually early Arctic blast. By contrast, the climatological average for July 7th hovers around 26 degrees high and 16 degrees low. So today's forecast sits well above the norm on the warm side and far from the historic chill. The live radar shows a blank canvas across southern Quebec and the St. Lawrence Basin. No rain echoes from the west, and the westerly jet at 63 kilometers per hour is steering any remaining moisture aloft, keeping the lower troposphere dry. With near-average pressure easing lower, the atmosphere remains stable, so precipitation isn't expected to develop before it reaches the city. The map stays clear as we turn to today's outlook. At 7, Montreal sits under a mostly clear sky with temperature 18 degrees Celsius, humidity 81%, and a light southwest breeze of 9 kilometers per hour. The near-average pressure is slipping lower, allowing the westerly jet at 63 kilometers per hour to inject drier air from the interior of the continent. That ridge of high pressure builds through the morning, pushing temperatures upward to 23 by 9 and 28 by noon as clouds thicken briefly. The afternoon stays warm, peaking near 30 degrees under persistent sunshine, then eases to 29 by evening as the jet drifts east. UV index 7. No weather alerts are active. A gentle southeast gust will reach a maximum of 15 kilometers per hour, enough to stir the leaves but not to feel chilling. Looking ahead, Wednesday remains under the same high-pressure dome with clear skies and a high near 30 degrees and a low around 18. Thursday, the jet shifts south, inviting a moist airstream that brings overcast conditions and a 65% chance of rain, while temperatures dip to a high of 24 and a low of 20. Friday, the ridge re-establishes, delivering mainly clear weather and a rebound to 27 degrees high, low near 18. Saturday and Sunday stay on that ridge, both offering clear to mainly clear skies, highs steady at 27 and lows around 17, giving the week a warm, dry finish. The persistent westerly jet at 63 kilometers per hour will continue to steer dry air, limiting any further rain chances. And that's your weather. Remember, the local sunrise is also available as a podcast. Listen anytime on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts.
Stay tuned for a quick look at today's traffic, the Canadians' trade to Vancouver, and Christian Blackshaw's recital. We will be right back.
Watch the local sunset tonight at 6 p.m. for all your local Montreal news.
The biggest story this morning is the REM outage between Gare Central and Brossard. Trains are not running, and service is expected back at 5:30 a.m. on Saturday. If you rely on the REM, consider the Metro Green Line or a bus along Boulevard René Lévesque for the next few hours. On roadside, traffic is flowing smoothly. Autoroute Quins, the Descoiries, St. Laurent Boulevard, Rue Shai Arbrook and Boulevard St. Charles are all moving at normal speed. Even the eastern stretch of Autoroute 6 shows no delay, and access to the airport via Autoroute 5 remains open. No accidents or construction are reported, so commuters can expect a clear ride into downtown. Looking ahead, the afternoon should stay calm. With the REM slated to resume before rush, there's no anticipated bottleneck on the highways. The commuter rail lines are on schedule and city's main routes remain unrestricted. Keep an eye on any sudden weather changes, but for now network is running free.
Christian Blackshaw brings the pinnacle of romanticism to the Église de Saint-Alphonse Rodriguez this morning, a rare chance to hear the celebrated pianist's delicate touch on works by Chopin and Schumann, perfect for a quiet start before the rush. It's a perfect way to soak in culture before heading out. If you're looking for tech buzz, Startup Fest continues at the Old Port, with 3 days of talks, pitch battles and networking that could spark your next big idea. Food lovers, mark your calendars for the Taste of the Caribbean at the Clock Tower Pier, Old Port, running from July 9 through July 12. Expect island flavors, live percussion and dance lessons that will transport you south of the border. And music fans, Soul Fest Montreal kicks off at St. James United Church on July 9, delivering Motown, R&B and gospel vibes that will keep the city dancing all weekend. And now here's Tyler with sports.
Local soccer dominates and a Hab moves on. Here's what's happening. The Montreal Roses FC put on a show in the Northern Super League, crushing Vancouver Rise FC 5-1. Evelyn Badu was the star of the night, netting a hat trick to power the Roses to a dominant result. CBC Sports Soccer reported the win on Saturday, July 4th. A notable roster move for the Montreal Canadiens. The organization has traded longtime forward Brendan Gallagher to the Vancouver Canucks in exchange for future considerations. CBC Sports NHL reported the deal on June 29, closing a chapter on Gallagher's tenure in Montreal. Before his departure to Vancouver, the city of Montreal honored Brendan Gallagher with one of its highest recognitions, naming him an honorary citizen. The ceremony took place at City Hall, a fitting tribute to a player who gave this community everything he had.
Steve's Music Store on St. Catherine Street in downtown Montreal has announced it will close its doors after 60 years of serving musicians and music lovers. Founded by Steve LeBlanc in 1964, the shop has been a go-to spot for everything from vintage guitars to sheet music, and a rehearsal space where budding artists could test their sound. The decision comes as post-COVID market shifts and rising rents make it harder for independent retailers to survive. Its loss will leave a quiet gap in the neighborhood, where generations have gathered to share riffs, advice, and community. Steve's has been more than a store. It's a heartbeat of Montreal's music scene, reminding us that the city's soul is built on places like this. And later, we'll share the uplifting work of volunteers delivering freshness kits to vulnerable Montreal residents, a true community boost.
Coming up tonight at 6, the local sunset. Your neighborhood, your city, your news. From City Hall decisions to the stories happening right on your street, we cover what matters most to Montrealers. Join us tonight at 6 p.m. on GMNA for the local Sunset Montreal's evening newscast.
At Centre Bell, the bright morning light filtered through the glass doors as families, fellow officers, and neighborhood volunteers gathered for a solemn tribute. The hall was hushed except for the soft rustle of maple leaves outside and the steady rhythm of a lone drum, a reminder of the rhythm of the city itself. Officers stood shoulder to shoulder, their uniforms crisp, while a single red poppy rested on a polished wooden podium. Ceremony honored Mohammed Lamin Benridwan, who fell in a shooting in Côte des Neiges on June 22. As his name was read, a young student from a nearby school stepped forward, holding a handmade sketch of the officer's smile, and spoke quietly about the bravery that had inspired her class to plant a community garden. The moment the garden's first seedling was placed beside the poppy, a collective breath was released, and the room seemed to fill with hope that his legacy would continue to grow. In these shared gestures, Montreal reminded itself that compassion endures beyond loss. I'm Lauren Dupuis, and we carry that promise forward together.
At the corner of St. Laurent and St. Denis, the low-lit charm of Bar Chez Paré has long been a gathering place for Montreal's night owls, musicians, and the neighborhood's longtime regulars. Last Thursday, a tense moment unfolded when a police officer allegedly pushed a patron to the floor and then filed a report that did not match what witnesses saw. What could have left a sour taste instead sparked something unexpected. The bar's owner, Marie-Claude, called on the community she's nurtured for years. Within hours, friends and strangers alike crowded the small back patio, offering fresh coffee, homemade pastries, and a listening ear. A local artist sketched the scene, turning the moment into a mural that now stretches across the wall, reminding everyone that compassion can outshine conflict. The officers' department opened an internal review, and the patron, after speaking with a community mediator, chose to focus on healing rather than retaliation. In a city where the streets pulse with stories, tonight's episode reminded us that even when shadows fall, the light of neighborly care remains unshakable.
Thank you, Montreal, for joining us on the local sunrise. Tonight's highlight was Aurélie Rivard's inspiring return at the trials, a reminder of perseverance in our community. Stay tuned for tomorrow's stories, and have a wonderful morning. We'll see you bright and early again, and thank the volunteers who delivered freshness kits to those in need.